Are you living together in Texas? You might be married and not even know it. My name is Christina Jimenez.
And my name is Josh Floyd. Welcome to the Consultation. We are both board certified family law attorneys here at Jimenez Floyd Family Law Firm. And today we're going to talk about whether or not you're married.
And what you can do to protect yourself so that you don't end up getting found to be married when you didn't want that to happen. So
That's terrible if you get married and don't want to be married.
Yeah.
I think it kind of happened to me.
Stop it, boy. Stop it. So, one of the things every year and for the past, 17 years and 13 years, we always go to advanced family law over in San Antonio. And so it's a continuing legal education course where.
And we do not get paid for that plug.
We do not. But it is a great, fantastic course that we go to every single year. We take all of our attorneys, all of our paralegals, and it's a way for us to kind of learn, new topics and think about things that we don't typically think about. And so one of the things they brought up this year was cohabitation agreements. And I do think that it is a tool that is underutilized, that not a lot of people know about. So we wanted to share the info with you guys and hopefully give you a little bit of insight and maybe protect yourself if this is what you'd like to do.
So I don't think they know what a cohabitation agreement is.
Okay.
Right? So we should probably talk about that first. So basically a cohabitation agreement, it's a written agreement between you and the person that you are residing with that kind of outlines your relationship, right? Like how you're going to handle the finances, if the home is in your both names or whatever, right? How you're going to handle all your day-to-day affairs.
Right. What happens if you separate?
Yes.
And
we don't like to talk about the separation
we
point
don't. But I think the most important thing that it covers is that there is no intent to be married. And that's probably the best reason, the most significant reason to have it, because in Texas, for our purposes, yes. Because what happens is a lot of times, and we're going to get into the elements of common law in a minute, but a lot of times people are found to be common law married, and that was never their intent. They just wanted to live with someone. But you can find yourself getting in trouble if you don't have a cohabitation agreement. And so, as Floyd stated, you guys do have to be living with one another at the time that it is executed. You obviously need to reach out to attorneys, and you need to make sure that you have their assistance in drafting the documents. And we want to make sure that we're outlining, everything from if we purchase property, this is how it's going to be divided. If we have bank accounts, this is how they're going to be operated. This is who's responsible for X, Y, and Z. And if, Lord forbid, it ever goes south, this is what we're going to do to divest each other of our assets.
It'll save a lot of problems in the future, right? Of how to do it all, because it's all planned out. It's kind of like a business contract, right? Like if you have a partnership agreement, it's kind of like what it is. But so who would need one of these? Who would need a cohabitation agreement?
What do you mean? People that are living together where there's obviously in a romantic relationship.
Why does it have to be romantic?
Well, because there has to be an intent to marry.
Well, if you're doing it for the purposes of common law marriage, right? But for any other purposes, right? Just me with a roommate, right? We could have a cohabitation agreement addressing how we're going to handle the finances and the furniture and the stuff that we purchase together as roomies.
You could, but we don't have any concerns about you guys getting married. So I don't know that I'm going to object as to relevance on this example.
We're talking about cohabitation agreements. It can be used for other purposes as well, not just to protect yourself from common law marriage. However, if you're going to go down that road, find somebody that knows that stuff.
Okay, very good. So what it can do, so it can clarify financial expectations, avoid future legal battles, which is the main thing that I think we're mostly concerned about, because divorces can be costly, and even proving that a marriage does not exist can be extremely costly as well. And then, of course, avoiding accidental common law marriage. What it cannot do.
Clarifying the financial obligation. So it can be anything from, you're paying the light bill to you're paying the water bill or whatever. Or it can be, we're going to open up a joint account. We're each going to put a certain amount of money in. Anything that doesn't cover this, like it can be really detailed to address how everything is going to be dealt with, which might also be good for just roommates. Like who gets which side of the refrigerator, right? Instead of my stuff type stuff. So you can deal with, very detailed. But what it can't do is it cannot decide any child custody issues, child support, really anything to do with kids. It certainly can't take the place of like a will or some type of power of attorney if you're intending for somebody to have something whenever you pass away. Doesn't do that. And then it can't turn a relationship into a marriage, which is what we're trying to avoid generally by doing this, right?
Right. And so in order to kind of understand why these things are so important, you kind of have to understand common law marriage and what the consequences are in a common law marriage. So in order to establish common law marriage, you have to have cohabitation, right? Which obviously if you're going to do this...
That means living together.
Yes, living together. Thank you. You have to have an agreement to be married, and then there has to be holding out. And so holding out basically means that you're representing to others, like, hey, this is my hubby. Hey, this is my wifey. You're wearing a ring. What else?
File married,
joint
tax returns, list them on insurance as a spouse, buy property as spouses.
If your mom and dad just think that y'all are married, or the people over at church just think that y'all are married, and we've proven a marriage once because the uncle had sent a quinceañera invitation to the couple and said Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez, and the court said, well, if your uncle thought that you guys were married, then that's enough to show that you guys to establish the common law marriage. And so the people always get kind of tricked up on the agreement to be married. That does not have to be proven by direct evidence. And so if you are holding out as husband and wife and just filing the returns or wearing the rings or etc., then it can be implied that you guys agreed at some point to be married. And so you have those three things, you have potentially a common law marriage. And so
so the tricky thing here, I think, it's living together as spouses, right? And so just because you're cohabitating with somebody, if you're in one room, she's in the other room, right? It would be difficult to satisfy that element, right? So you have to live together as spouses. And so what the courts generally look at is, are you living like a married couple would, right? Same bedroom. Are you intimate? Do you go to family functions together? Do you eat dinner together? Do you go grocery shopping together? Stuff that you do in the early parts of marriage, not so much in the end of the marriage, but
But the problem is, though, is that is, a lot of times the court or people will state that family law court is perjury court, right? And so when you find yourself in that situation, what if you have, a man, maybe all those facts are true, but you have a man that comes in and says, no, we slept apart because I snore and she didn't want me snoring, but we were, intimate before we went to our separate bedrooms, and we absolutely...
Early in the marriage.
We absolutely were, romantically involved, and we were husband and wife. You kind of leave yourself open to a potential finding of the common law marriage. And so I would be careful with the whole roommate situation, and maybe that's a good reason to, even if you're not romantically involved, I'm going to withdraw my objection. But now you didn't explain it properly. I withdraw my objection. You may proceed.
So yes, it is important to have a cohabitation agreement. So although those are factors that they look at, none of them are dispositive, right? And you don't want to put your situation in the hands of a court to interpret what you were intended by the way you were living, right? And so a cohabitation agreement solves all of that.
It does. So a lot of people, I've had people say this to me before, that, we were not married we were not living together for 7 years or for 2 years or 90 days. Like, everybody has this idea that there has to be some sort of time frame in order to establish a common law marriage, and that is just not the case.
6 months.
Yeah.
6 months. We've been living together for 6 months, but I don't care.
Right. So the time that you guys are cohabitating doesn't matter. It's really those other three things, right? So all three things have to be present to establish the common law marriage.
You could be living together for a week and satisfy all the elements, and be living together for 20 years and never satisfy the elements.
Right. And you don't have to have a ceremony, right? Because people will often say, well, we never went to the courthouse, or we never went to the church. In order for common law to exist, you don't need any of that, right? So that's going to be a problem for you if you don't have this cohabitation agreement. And so what happens if the breakup turns legal? And so the way that you would typically see this thing play out is, say you're living with someone and you think we're just roommates and we're not romantically involved, and they're like, okay, well, you're kicking me out, and now I want half of your retirement and half of your bank accounts and half of this home, and we've been living together for the past 10 years, and so I want half of everything. Then that person's going to file a petition for divorce. And then if you have this cohabitation agreement, what's the response?
Then you would say, no, we're not married.
You would seek a declaration. There's also legal paperwork that we file.
We could file a declaratory judgment if you wanted. If I was a lawyer.
Then what would you do?
If I was a lawyer, I would probably file for a declaratory judgment using the cohabitation agreement as evidence that we were never married.
Very good, Floyd. You are board certified.
Yeah.
Okay, good
that's
job.
That's what they tell me. But even if, so you said if you're not romantically involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even if you are romantically involved, you can live together, be romantically involved, and not common law married.
Right.
Right? And so, I mean, if you're going down that road, definitely cohabitate. The more you go towards looking like a marriage, the more you need a cohabitation agreement, right? So yeah, even if you are intimately involved, you can still have a big fight, right?
Right.
Which, yeah.
And that's the thing that I think is very frustrating. And I've had clients who go out of their way to say, no, this is not my wife. No, this is not my husband. No, we're never going to file tax returns. No, I never gave her a ring. Like, they're very clear. They understand the elements of proving a common law marriage. And so they're very, clear in their intentions of, hey, we're not going to establish this. But without this cohabitation agreement, you still leave yourself open to interpretation, right? And so, going back to the quinceañera example, right? I think the only piece of evidence that we had was that invitation, and I honestly didn't think that was going to be enough to establish the marriage. And in that particular court, the judge said, no, this is enough. And so now you're common law married. And so it's good to understand the elements, and it's good to not file the joint tax returns and to not do all the things. But if you, are the income earning party and you just want to shack up with somebody, make sure that you get this thing signed, because you're leaving yourself open to a huge, huge risk. And here's, so I feel like we're kind of
just to kind of be clear here, so the only law, right, regarding common law marriage is that you live together in Texas, you agree to be married, I lost the third one.
Intent.
And you have the intent to be married. That's all the code says about common law marriage. Everything else regarding tax returns, acting as spouses, the cards, everything that we're talking about, it's stuff that came from cases and just different facts that judges looked at to make that determination. So you can fit 2 or 3 of these examples that we've talked about and still not be common law married, or fit one and be common law married, and leaving yourself open to that court's discretion based on what they think to be common law marriage is dangerous.
Well, and so we had a case over in Dallas where the parties had been previously divorced. They had filed separate tax returns. So after the divorce, they're still living together. File separate tax returns. I think the wife was very intentional that none of the stuff was in their joint names. Husband claimed that he didn't know that the previous divorce had gone through, so he kept signing things, as husband and wife, and they had gone to an event where they were sponsors, and they had it listed as Mr. and Mrs., etc., right? And I think that we found one hospital record where she listed him as her emergency contact, and in that it said husband, right? And so with those 2 pieces of evidence, we were able to prove that a marriage existed, and then he was able to get half of everything that was acquired during the marriage. And so it's dangerous. It's like Floyd said, it's up to the court's discretion, and a judge could have easily said, no, this isn't enough. Tax returns, I've had some judges that say everything matters on the tax returns, and if however they file, then that's what I'm going to go with. I mean, family law is very, very discretionary.
And one judge may say yes, one judge may say no, with the very same facts. And so the safe play is to do a
cohabitation agreement.
That would be the way to go.
If you're, like I said, the income earning spouse, or both of, not spouse, income earning party, or both
She
of you
just
guys
married you.
are, right? And so, and obviously, if you are not the income earning party, then perhaps you don't want your partner to see this
Maybe
podcast
if you just want to be clear about your relationship.
maybe. So what can happen if you're not? So you have property division lawsuits. We have accidental community property claims, potentially an estate issue if somebody passes without a will, right? Because if the party that you're living with can establish common law marriage because you did not have a cohabitation agreement, now they are your spouse, and now your estate gets left to this person, and maybe that was never your intention, but there's nothing that we can do about
And
it.
believe it or not, that's where a lot of our fact scenarios on common law marriage come from, are estate cases, right? When this very thing is happening because they didn't do a cohabitation agreement because they didn't see our podcast. So you're very fortunate to be able to watch this. So make sure if you are in the situation, you get one done before you pass away.
Right. So how do you protect yourself?
Cohabitation agreement?
Yes, good job, Floyd. Actually, you've been listening.
Yes.
So have a clear cohabitation agreement. I would hire an attorney, guys. I mean, so we have had cases where the common law marriage is established, and then you have to go and you have to prove when was it established, right? And it can go back 20 years, right? And so you could have had this home, maybe you guys were just dating at the time, and you purchased this home in your own name, but they established a common law marriage and the court finds that it actually occurred prior to you buying this home, and now you're giving up your potential separate property home and having to sell it because the marriage has been found, right? So getting a written, clear cohabitation agreement is going to be the most safe thing that you can do to protect yourself against that. And even if you guys have been living together for the past 10 years and you're watching this, go hire a lawyer, make sure that they get this thing drafted properly so that you don't have these issues in another 10 years and lose half of everything, right?
Because that would not be fun.
Yeah.
But in the event that you don't, don't call them your spouse.
Right.
Don't file tax returns. Don't commingle all your property. Try to keep everything separate.
And let's say, I didn't even think about this, but if you get, this is awkward, but I mean, I guess depending on how much you want to avoid being found to be married. But if you get an invitation where it says Mr. and Mrs.
Send them back a letter.
Seriously.
Get out of here.
Certified letter, return
Dude.
receipt. But seriously, Floyd, if you have a joint conversation where, let's say, hypothetically,
if you were the girl in that situation,
or not husband or wife, but man and woman, they call Uncle John and they say, "Hey, Uncle John, you sent us this invitation, but we're not actually married. We just wanted to clarify this." And then the man gets it on recording just to prove, hey. I mean, listen, how much is it worth to you?
No, I agree. But if
you could just do a cohabitation
if you were the female in that situation,
well, yeah,
how would you take that?
I would be pissed.
Right.
But I mean, if I'm the man, I'm going to be pissed that you're pissed. What are you trying to do? Take half my stuff? We need a cohabitation agreement right now.
Yep. And then someone will file for divorce.
There you go. And then you have a problem.
All of that avoided, simple cohabitation agreement.
So, keep finances separate. That's the next, way to protect yourself, is keeping your finances separate. Yes, but doesn't really help you whenever you're trying to fight this finding of a common law marriage. Because, husbands and wives who are legally married, they oftentimes have separate bank accounts. And so I don't think it negates...
It's a red flag. But...
Yeah. Yes, it is. But I don't think it negates the finding of a marriage, but it does help. And then it says, considering estate planning documents, wills, powers of attorneys, healthcare directives, etc. And I mean, you can look at it from an inverse perspective as well, right? If you have a cohabitation agreement, but this is in fact your life partner, and you want to make sure that if something happens to you, they are able to collect whatever you want them to have, then make sure that you hire a good estate attorney like Mr. Chris Ham at our office to help you draft all of those things, right?
Yep. Protect yourself either way.
Okay. So, takeaway thoughts. Living together is not legally neutral. I don't know what this means. We're not.
I don't even know why you said it.
I don't know why I said that.
So, basically, living together in Texas doesn't mean you're married, but it can.
It can, yes.
I don't know if that's what I said.
But we're going to go with that. And the big thing is yes, hiring an attorney to do this cohabitation agreement it's going to be expensive. It's going to cost you some money, but I can assure you it's going to be cheaper than a divorce if in fact they filed that suit. And so, and then the risk associated with it, right? So not just the cost of hiring an attorney to defend the divorce proceeding, but if, Lord forbid, you lose and you have to give up half of your estate and, maybe pay spousal support, those are issues that can be avoided by taking the time to draft this thing up.
Or if you're not here to defend yourself because you passed away and your kids do not get your stuff.
Yep. So, as always, do not accept this as legal advice. If you find yourself in a situation similar to this, please reach out to an attorney in your area that knows your judge. Hire them and follow their advice. As stated, we are both board certified family law attorneys in the state of Texas. You can find us on all social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. And if you need legal services in the DFW Metroplex area, we have offices in Louisville, Flower Mound, Dallas, and Bedford, and in West Texas in Midland and Odessa. Thanks for watching.